On this episode of Survival Dispatch Reviews, we're going to talk about what you should be putting in your scavenging kit. This Survival Dispatch video is brought to you by Nutrient Survival. Nourish your body, power your mind. And we're back with Survival Dispatch Reviews. And I am excited to jump into this topic about scavenging and what you should be putting in your scavenging kit. But before we do that, make sure you do us a favor, fight suppression, get down there in that section. Make sure you click that like, subscribe button, click the little bell notification icon to get updated every time we upload new content like this here on Survival Dispatch. My name's Chris. I'm with ammo.com, and I have a great panel today to talk about what we're going to call our Gopher bag, because you need to go for stuff, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. As always, we have Chris Heaven here locked and loaded in his gas mask, ready to go for the end of the world as we know it. We've got Denny from Survival Downrange, and of course, Mike Sterling, my good buddy, who knows everything to deal with destruction and mayhem. He is our resident for that. But we're going to set the stage here, and I need to give credit where credit is due. So on our bailout bag video, we had one of our commenters leave us a comment and say, hey, I want you guys to go and check out this video. And it was from a channel called the Survival Outpost, and he called it the Vulture Tool Kit. So we want to give him credit for this concept. We thought it was a really cool idea, but it was a little bit old. It's been 7 years since he posted that video, and we think we can update it a little bit and give you guys some new ideas for new things to do if you're going to want to go scavenging. Now, we're going to set the stage for you here a little bit as to when we're going to be using this type of kit, because there's a lot of people down there in the comments saying, I can't believe that you would go and do something like this or that. But hear us out on the situation here. It's been 3 months. The grid is down. There is no rule of law. All the first responders are at home protecting their families. We've been preparing. We got everything put together, but we're starting to run out of supplies. After 3 months, that canned food is going to start to run thin. Even if you've got locked and loaded with nutrient survival, sooner or later, that stuff's going to run out, and you're going to have to go and get some more. And so to do that, we're going to have to go scavenging, or as we like to call it, gophering. We're going to have to go for this. So we need to put a kit together to make sure that we have everything that we need while we're out in the field to try and not only just survive, but get what we need and bring it back to our home base of operations, wherever that may be. May be your bug out location, may just be your apartment in the city. But there's a lot of things to consider when you're going out into the wild of, the end of the world as we know it, because there is no rule of law. No one's there to protect you. So you're going to need to get what you need as quickly as possible. And so we're putting together some ideas for you guys if you want to put together this kit to have it on your person ready to go. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about what we're going to wear. Because I think that's something that, maybe we skip over a little bit. Of course, we talk about gray man concepts quite a bit. I love Denny's shirt today. Very gray man, looking great in that one, Denny.
Got my urban gray man going on.
Absolutely. And that's going to be a big one, in my opinion, because if you're going to go looking for supplies, you need to go where the supplies are. And, if you're living out in the boondocks, you're not going to have your warehouses or things like that maybe nearby. So that might look a little different depending on where you live. But blending in with your surroundings, I think, is a really important thing, but also being able to protect yourself. So, Denny, since you got the shirt on, what are you going to be wearing if you're going to be going out and you need to, go for some stuff?
Yeah, so we don't know what kind of environment we're going to be in. So we don't want to be out there in clothing that's going to easily tear, rip, not give us protection from the elements. I'm probably going to be in probably going to be in denim blue jeans, and I'm going to probably wear a couple layers. I almost always wear layers anyway, so that, for one thing, I'm down here in Florida, it's hot and humid. If I need to strip something off an outer layer or so forth, but I want to be protected from the elements. I do want to blend in, so to speak. I want to wear shoes or boots that cover my ankles, and hopefully something that laces up that's going to give me support as well. I usually wear a hat. Not wearing a hat today. I'm embracing my mature hairline today, showing off my fresh haircut. But I am going to protect myself from, I know, Mike. Hey, I got a little bit left up here. But really, we want to protect ourselves from the element, protect ourselves from the environment with our clothing, and provide your feet with some support. And as Mike Sterling always says, make sure you have good socks as well. I actually carry extra pair of wool socks with me at all times.
Yeah, Mike, you've been across the pond, and you've been in some pretty harsh environments. What are your thoughts on this?
So I'm kind of with Denny on this. As we all know, I mean, in a wrecked out type situation like this, everything's trying to cut you. Period.
Hmm.
And your whatever clothing that you do choose is just going to get the hell kicked out of it. I like jeans, right? Jeans usually blend in well, but I'm a big fan of like Carhartt pants,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Or the what are they? The Duluth fire hose
Duluth.
pants, stuff like
Yep.
that. Those things are virtually indestructible. I love them. Okay, they're a little bit warm for your environment down there in Florida, guys. You're gonna, you're gonna kind of bake in that stuff. But the other big thing that I'm gonna wind up doing is I'm also gonna wear a heavy duty long sleeve shirt. Now I can leave it unbuttoned and stuff, but I'm going to want to be able to, once we get into, if we're going to be getting into a type of building that's only been occupied by vermin for a while,
Hmm.
I don't want any of that stuff on me as much as I possibly can. So not only am I using this stuff to keep from getting cut and abraded, but I'm also using this stuff as a layer that I can shuck fairly quickly after a while. Especially, I mean, you don't want hantavirus or anything like that. It's just it gets nasty. So um, something that you can wash easily later, but it's going to stand up to a whole bunch of abuse, especially if fire winds up being involved, because you don't want to be wearing anything synthetic that's going to melt onto you.
Yeah. That's a really good thought, and I hadn't even thought about the pest issues. So that's a really good thought to think about when you're going through maybe buildings that people are not living in anymore. And I don't mean that they moved out. If we're 3 months into it, there are going to be issues with that. And of course, we're not here for any of those things, but the mice, the rats, all of the different type of vermin are going to be getting in there, and it's going to be nasty. And that's a great way to catch a disease that could kill yourself in SHTF. That you're probably not going to have the necessary medical tools or medicines to, save your life from. So prevention is the best key. They say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So long sleeves, definitely, even if it's hot, being able to take that off while you're traveling, great way to do it. But definitely sun protection. That could be a great thing if you're having to travel during the day. Now, if you're traveling at night, different considerations there, but we'll kind of let you do that. But if you're traveling at night, having some lighting, I think, is going to be really important. Or if you're going into these buildings, I mean, if we're 3 months post SHTF, the grid is down at that point, whether it has been, an EMP, we can go all the way down the rabbit hole here, but by that time, no one's going to work. The grid's toast, and you're going to need some lighting. And so, I mean, obviously, we're going to want to have like a flashlight or a headlamp. Is there anything else that you guys are going to be taking with you?
I want to chime in there and say everybody should have an EDC light anyway on
Oh,
their
yeah.
person at all times, even in the daytime, because Chris is well prepared here as well. I know you guys agree with me on this. EDC lights are essential items that you should have anyway. And in this situation, it's even more important. So I always carry my little Streamlight Micro in my pocket. I have probably as many lights as I have pocket knives, which is a lot. But I just want to chime in on that. Always, always, always carry a light anyway, regardless.
Yeah, I always stick with a headlamp. I keep it around my neck most of the time until time comes that I'm going to wind up needing it for close in stuff. And you've seen the petzels that I use. The big key point of the whole thing being I'm not going to drop it. That, and it allows me to have light when I need to use my hands. And just, the world that I live in, I got to be able to be hands free and have plenty of light. So, yeah, that's a question. And of course, make sure that you've got a light that preferably has a blue green
I
set of
want to show you
lights on it.
guys something really cool, light, and cheap. I did a review on this recently. It's a little Sunblessa, little bit. It's only like 350 lumens, super small, and rechargeable as well. I've like 4 or 5 probably headlamps, but this is one of the really light one. Just an example of what Mike's talking about here.
Yeah, blue green light. If it's in a lower intensity, will give you a whole lot it'll give you a whole lot better definition. If you use red light, everything just kind of blends together a whole lot, just the way the rods and cones in your eyes work. If you get blue green, you get a little bit better view of what you're seeing from a technical standpoint. If we're doing some B&E stuff here, you're going to need to be able to do some technical stuff. But if you go high intensity, it will burn out your eyes. So yeah, it'll go just like white light.
Yeah, you need like a nice medium between the two. That's really going to be important. I think glow sticks are another great thing that you could have in there. Very lightweight. You just need to get some area lit up real quick. Just shake that glow stick, chuck it in there, and then if you're like, okay, I'm not going in that space. That's a nice little disposable item that you're not going to be able to reuse anyway. So having a little bit, couple of those, always a nice idea. Now let's talk about one thing that I felt was a little missing from the Survival Outpost video. My one critique of his bag, I think he had a lot of cool stuff in there, was his bag was completely packed. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is great. We can get in places, but now we can't take anything out because we have no way to carry anything home. And so I know we had a little discussion beforehand. Chris, what were your thoughts on this? How are we going to get all this gear back home if we find stuff?
Well, I use Denny as an example. He's got a wagon that he drags around full of guns and ammo and magazines when we go to the range. So something like a kid's wagon. I think Mike's got, a wagon as well. Anything with wheels on it that makes it easy to move stuff, basically.
Yeah, the one that I like to use looks like Mike's there. As a matter of fact, it might even be the same make and model. It's a fold up. Down here, they call them a beach cart, and it folds up really small. The capacity is increased exponentially when you open it up, and you can haul a lot of stuff in there. It's really light as well. So yeah, beach cart.
And that's a big consideration, obviously. If we're going to have to take the ankle express out somewhere, aka walking, if you didn't catch the joke, you're going to need something. You're going to want to keep your weight down. This bag, this Gopher bag, we don't want to just be able to carry everything. This is not a bug out bag. We're just going to go out. We're going to get our stuff and we'll get back. Mike, what were your thoughts here?
So a couple of other things. So we used to one of the big things when dump pouches first came out. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's a dump pouch. It's for putting ammo in." Mm-hmm. People in my world, we hardly ever used them for putting magazines in. I got these little Maxpedition ultralight ones, right? And these things are the best. We used to use these particularly for sensitive site exploitations, which is just like going and doing what we're doing here, right? So I can take this little thing, drop this down on my hip, and do the quick grabs as I'm going through a place. If I'm in a hurry, say, hey, okay, there's somebody else coming, on their way here. I'm going to grab what I can. I'm not going to worry about screwing around with my pack. I'm going to toss it in here and I'm going to bail.
Does that have a belt attachment, Mike?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. That's really cool. Go ahead, attach that straight to your belt. Wherever, you're good to go. Another thing that I would also keep inside that kit is a couple of 33-gallon contractor trash bags.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get like lots of lightweight stuff, say you find some good stuff, you find some blankets that aren't torn up by critters. Man, those things always come in handy, and they are great for trading to other people. Snag those things up. They go inside those bags just fine. You can decon them later. You just don't want to get all that nasty schmutz on you during the process. You're going to be sneezing forever. But you throw them in there now, chuck them into the wagon, roll.
It's a really good idea. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, obviously we think about trash bags for like, makeshift poncho or something like that if it starts raining. But yeah, bringing back lightweight items, that's a really good idea. And blankets in 3 months after the bell has gone up, or the balloon has gone up, that's the word. Obviously blankets are something that could save somebody's life.
Or coats. Get into somebody's old coat closet where they've got their clothing and their coats and stuff like hanging in the big hanging Ziplocs.
Yep.
Dude, you're in great shape there, man. Pull those things, go. Great trade items now.
Definitely. All right, cool. Let's talk a bit about something that I know Mike is very passionate about, and that is land navigation. This is, if you haven't watched any of our videos and you haven't heard Mike talk about paper maps, then man, you're missing out. And Chris has one from his most recent trip. But guys, let's talk a little bit about land nav, because we had some ideas for, maybe a little bit of reconnaissance in your local area that might be something you hadn't have thought of maybe 7 years ago. But Mike, let's talk about the basics. And then I know Chris has some cool stuff he wants to show us for some recon.
So I think one of the big things about about doing what you're going to wind up doing. First, you're going to have a map of the area, right? That's the key is to have an actual production map of the area. But then the next thing that you're going to need to make sure that you've got, have yourself a notepad. You're going to wind up writing your own map, because you're not, if you find a place that you're like, okay, this looks like a good place, are you just going to go straight in? Or are you going to actually spend a little bit of time watching the place? I hate to say casing it, but you know,
field reconnaissance.
Yeah. You're gonna spend a little bit of time performing reconnaissance. So you're gonna sit in the brush and you're just gonna watch the place. Make sure that this is not somebody else's stash, right? If you wind up with absolutely no activity on a place 48 hours, pretty good chance that you're not going to be, getting shot in the face with a shotgun when you go screwing around in there, because of course security being your one of your primary points on this whole thing. So yeah, you're going to write a little map. And the big thing is you're going to, of course, wind up trying to get, we can't always get, but trying to get a 360-degree view, not only for, okay, what's the building laid out as, if I can see inside windows, what's going on in there, but also you're looking at your egress routes. Okay. If there's anybody else that like patrols in that area or anything like that, you're going to need to know about that. And then you're going to need to know, the first thing you need to know is, first, how do I get out of here? And how do I get out of here fast? And not just one route, multiple routes.
And I think that type of situational awareness is something that every prepper should be practicing, no matter where you're going, whether you're going into a mall, especially if you're EDCing that day. You need to have an idea of where your danger points are and where your exits are, so you can get out of a situation if possible. So really great application of something we should be doing already. And if you're not, it's something you can start integrating into your everyday life. Now, 7 years ago, we didn't really have access to certain equipment. But Chris had a great idea about another way that you can get a little bit of forward reconnaissance with some more modern tech.
Yeah, actually, I got a couple things here, Chris. Number one, we've got this, I think it's pronounced Ruko drone, the second generation one. I think the first generation of these guys had some problems, but the second generation is pretty good. Comes with training wheels on it, so it'll only go to a limited distance. But you can go in and remove the training wheels, and it's got about a 9,800 foot range from the controller. So, and it's got a gimbal camera on the front.
What kind of price was on that?
I don't think this thing was very expensive, 400-ish, maybe something like that. But I can take this high enough that I can't see it with the naked eye and I can't hear it. So this is a great way to gather some intel.
Which means it's also at a shotgun range too, which is important.
that too,
Good point.
Personally, myself, if I was going out to scavenge 3 months after the shit hit the fan, I'd be doing it at night. So all of my clothing would be black, for example, with the exception and that's in an urban environment. If I was in a rural environment, we've got all kinds of camo stuff. I like the con camo stuff, the Ghost Hoodie and whatnot. It's really, ask Denny. He's walked past me 5 feet away and didn't see me hiding in the bushes and that stuff. But I think no matter what, and I'm pretty sure the guy from Survival Outpost pointed this out, but having a set of folding binoculars, nice and small. But if I'm going out at night, I'm going to take something like these night vision binoculars with me. And they have an optical zoom, meaning that the zoom's built into the glass, so just like a scope instead of crappy digital zoom. So you can use these day or night, and you can see a heck of a long ways away. I was able to zoom in on some stuff about 1,000 yards away when Cindy and I were doing some field testing with it, and I could see absolutely perfectly. So little bit of technology making the job a little safer for us.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going in at night, if you have that tech and that capability, really gives you an edge as far as going in quiet and not being able to be detected as easily as if you were going in during the day. Now, let's talk about getting in. This is something that I think we all like talking about, the hand tools and things like that for getting in, or we refer to it as breaching tools and things like that. Obviously, we're going to want to have some standard stuff. You're going to want to have bolt cutters, the key to the city. You're going to want to have like a pry bar, something like that. But I know you guys have some different type of tools to talk about. Denny, you've got like your bag here. What tools are you packing?
So in preparation for this discussion today, I took inventory of my tools at home and what I had, and I decided that I was going to go shopping because I want my Gopher bag to be separate from my other stuff. I want it to be packed and ready. This isn't complete, but this is what I got today from Lowe's for 140 bucks. So I've got a pack of 15 count heavy duty zip ties, which we can use for a lot of different things. I have a small pouch. It's not a designated dump pouch, but I can use it for whatever I want. And I can hang my hatchet off of it or my pry bar, which I did buy as well. I've got small bolt cutters, which I can get through chain link fence with. And if you watch a video that we referred to, he made a really interesting reference as to if you want to hide your the fact that you cut through, you can find a corner and cut just enough to squeeze through so it'll kind of spring back. Anyway, bolt cutters, which I think are essential.
And then zip tie it closed.
Hacksaw. You can tell I just went shopping, right? A small hacksaw for whatever. This stuff isn't very expensive. All this stuff I got for less than 140 bucks. A siphon kit. You can find these at Lowe's and Home Depot. Why do we need a siphon kit? If we find fuel, we're going to use it for something. Paracord, we all preach paracord. Extra paracord. I have a bunch at home, but I want a separate little bundle of paracord that stays in my bag. Here's the 4-way water key. Yep, that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. Here's a pry bar, which will get you into a lot of stuff that you can't just open up with your hands. And a standard hatchet, which also can be a hammer as well. Chris has a really fancy hatchet over there. All this stuff I bought for less than 140 bucks. It's not complete, but I have a lot of great basic breaching tools. Chris has some fancy stuff. And Chris has a couple of very interesting breaching tools that you cannot find at Lowe's or Home Depot. Maybe you'd like to show us what you got there in that regard.
Yep. So another one of Mike's favorite toys. These are breach pens. So this one's the Gen 2, burns a little over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit for somewhere around 25 seconds, give or take. So you can cut through chain link, you can cut through locks, you can cut the hinges off a door, whatever the case may be. This one burns for about 20 seconds. It's slightly smaller, but 5,000 degrees, they'll cut through just about anything. It's like a portable, acetylene torch, essentially. You can take these and put them underwater as well, and they will burn stuff underwater. They're pretty much foolproof for breaking into stuff.
And that is for thermal breaching, which you need to have. You need to use that in its appropriate point. However, there's, as a former breacher as well, God help me. So there's an appropriate time for thermal breaching, and then there's all the other times. So thermal breaching is really good when you're kind of in a bit of an enclosed environment, and the light is not going to attract a bunch of attention.
Good point.
Yeah. So strong suggestion, if you do intend on using something like that on like a door or something like that, the best time to use it is during the daytime.
Yep. And it really is. You're going to light up like a Christmas tree.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's going to say, who's welding? And honestly, probably one of the smartest things that you could also do is, and we used to do this, we call it a blackout tarp, but you could use a poncho or something like that. And you basically tape up your poncho over, say, the door or window that you're getting ready to cut in. Say if you're going to go through a window grate or something like that, you tape up your poncho around there, and then you get up under it. It's going to suck. Don't breathe a lot. Okay. Wear your glasses, everything like that. Do your torch from behind that tarp. Okay. Your smoke will roll out. It's best to have a partner to, occasionally, fan some air in there for you, because, you're going to choke. But yeah, that's one of the points for thermal breach.
Those breach pins, by the way, once you start them, they got to burn out.
Stop.
You're not going to put them out with a fire extinguisher or water. They have to run through the entire course of the breach pin. So just something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is burn down the place where you're trying to get into.
Right. Yeah, that's counterproductive.
Mike mentioned a poncho there as well. That was on my list, a GI poncho or a replica, that's got good grommets in it. So we're not just protected from the elements. We can make a tent / shelter out of it if we can't get back to home base for whatever reason.
Yep. For sure. And, always a good thing to carry with you after 3 months after the balloon goes up. Definitely a good thing. Now, I know, Mike, you have your personal favorite breaching tool there. What is that one? Yep, that bad boy. That thing's going to get you in a lot of places.
My FUBAR. And of course, once again, this is the short version, just because it's a little bit more it's a little bit more easily carried. These go all the way out to 48 inches. I would not go over 30 inches. I'm actually looking to pick up one of the longer ones, but yeah, this one.
Awesome.
Oh, these things are great, man.
I want to know where to get one right now.
Dude, it's Stanley. It's Stanley Tools, man. Called the FUBAR. It's great. It's wonderful.
It's really called a FUBAR?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not just making that up.
Yeah. I wish I was making that up, man, but I'm not. So, tools wise, I agree with a lot of this stuff. And Denny, you hit on a lot of the things. I'm a big guy when it comes to pry, because it's a whole lot less dynamic and it's not nearly as loud in a lot of cases. But the biggest thing, both as a breacher and as an EOD tech, and I have to preface some of this by saying that I did attend the Department of Defense Advanced Access and Disablement course, which everybody pretty much called the cat burglar course. So there is a ton of things that I just plain cannot get into and will not get into because, I don't look good in orange. But from those things, our predominant issue, the primary thing that we were usually fighting was not people, it was sensors. And, when you've got things like, sonic sensors and stuff like that, man, I'll tell you what, a sensor don't sleep, and a sensor does not get distracted by, throwing a pebble to the other side of the place. So the biggest thing that we always looked for was the most alternate method of entry into a place that was also the easiest. So, and the point was breach like water, take the path of least resistance, right? So back to Kenny's drone there, right? Or Chris's drone. So the absolute best thing for that is find if there's an access from the roof for a building. If there's access from a roof, what are you doing going in on the ground level or even on the second floor? Get yourself up onto that roof, enter from the roof, go on down. I'm not talking about sliding down the chimney. None of us are Santa Claus. But if you've got an apartment building that you need to be able to get into, why do you think the tier 1 guys always hit the front and the back of the building as well as the roof all at the same time? The guys in the front and the back, they're not the primary smoke team. Okay. It's the guys that are hitting up on the roof. Those are the guys that everybody's paying attention to who's on the street, not paying attention to who's coming down from above them. Okay. Yeah. So I'm big in quieter tools, less dynamic tools whenever I possibly can. I mean, explosive breaching is always a good time, but we can't always do that, and it draws a lot of attention. It's a dinner bell. So a couple of things that I do, and I work. I'll carry a series of grades of pry bar. So I've got this little itty bitty pry bar here, right? And you'll notice that back here I've got a bunch of tape bundled up there. Now, why would I have that on there?
Well, I mean, it's always good to have tape.
Has nothing to do with that. Okay. Has everything to do with
hammering.
Noise. Vibration.
It's keeping the noise from hammering quieter, right? So I can get this into a door, right? And a regular residential door, I can normally pop with one of these. That's not a big issue, right? Got a slightly larger one. Okay. If I need to get a little bit heavier, well, then I got the same size that you've got there, Denny. And of course, if it starts really pissing me off, all right, no problem.
The FUBAR.
Right. But the big thing is, stuff like this is really good for things like I said, window bars and stuff. You can just get into there and just give it a nice little pry, because what you're trying to overcome then is you're just trying to overcome the screws. Right. And you get those out of their primary tensile direction. They're going to snap. Okay. It's quiet, things like that. Big roll of duct tape just for putting on surfaces to keep things quiet. There's also another thing for duct tape. If in fact you have to, say, break a window, right?
Oh, you're going to put it on the window, aren't you?
Breaking windows is loud, right? So we make a nice little sheet of duct tape. It goes right on the window. Now, in that case, am I going to use this? No.
No, we're using the little one.
I'm going to use this little one, and I'm just going to go tap, 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 tap. And then I'm going to peel this out, and then I'm going to reach in and I'm going to do the locks. All right.
Sneaky stuff.
I'm telling you, man, Sneaky Pete. And you know, throw in on top of that, you know, a cold steel rifleman's hawk.
Oh yeah.
You know, that nice dual use item. Yeah. Chop, hammer, do whatever I need to do with that. Nice long handle.
Yep.
I can pry with it. So yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done with that. I normally only carry a trail hawk because this stupid thing is freaking heavy. Yeah, I don't want to go on the trail with that dumb thing. A couple of other things, like for prying, all right. A knife can be a good tool for prying. You got to have the right kind of knife. All right. And I know Kenny, Chris, you brought some good stuff. This is one of the ones that they used to issue us. This is a Mission Tools. I think this is the MTK. I think it is. Anyway, it's an all titanium knife. Look at the thickness of that thing. Look at how thick that stupid thing is. This is particularly meant. Now, granted, this is a titanium knife. This is like a $600 knife. This is ridiculous, man.
Pricey.
And you can tell that I've never used it. You know, it's literally sat in a bag. But it's titanium with it's completely non-magnetic. The point being, I can get around, you know, magnetically fused munitions with this sort of thing and do a little bit of entering, stuff like that. Or I can run around magnetic sensors of any kind with it. You know, that's a thing. So if you happen to see me trying to break into a building in, you know, just my underwear and socks and this knife, you'll know what's going on.
Chris, what one do you have for us?
This is my favorite fixed blade knife. This is from Tops Knives. I beat the heck out of this thing, and it's indestructible. So yeah. I found everything from Tops Knives. The price is fair. It's not the cheapest, not the most expensive, but the quality is exceptional.
Absolutely. Some of the best stuff that you're going to get your hands on out there.
Yeah, 100% made in the U.S.
Yeah, you should have a pocket knife on you anyway. You should if you're a good survivalist, you should probably have a multi-tool on you anyway. And should probably have an alternative bigger knife of some type. You guys agree?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
100%. So we kind of got dipped into the PPE type of thing. So, I mean, obviously personal protection while we're out in the field is going to be incredibly important. You know, Mike, you already touched on, you know, disease prevention. I think that's a great thing, but there are some other things. I know, Mike, you always like to say whenever you're in an environment like this, everything wants to cut you. So like, what are some of your PPE things? And I know, Chris, you had a special one that you were wearing when we started the video, but Mike, take us away with PPE.
So, of course, the one thing that you can never replace, and that, you know, I mean, if you get a cut on your hand, all right, you can handle that, right? Most of us can handle that. A medic at your camp can handle that, okay? What you cannot handle at all is an eye injury. Nobody's going to be able to handle that unless you have somebody really serious just hanging around that happens to have, you know, an ENT surgery. Wear some safety glasses. Now, if you're wearing glasses for reading or seeing, put goggles on. Nobody cares what you look like. Okay. Put some goggles on. Protect your bloody eyes. And then also and we're talking about, you know, we're talking about a situation that you're going to go into, like we talked about, where there's going to be a lot of dust creeping around, especially once you start moving around in there, especially if you've got a building that nobody's been in for a while, other than the nasty four-legged critters and birds and stuff like that. Put on at the bare minimum, put on an N95 mask. Okay, your shamag's not going to cover it. Your a handkerchief over your mouth isn't going to cover it. It's just not going to do it. An N95 mask or just a paint respirator on your face. That's a great thing. Now, Kenny, you had your full face APR there that we were messing with. Personally, I think that's a little bit of overkill for one of these situations, depending on what we're dealing with. But it is not a bad thing to have around. And here's why. Say the person who previously resided there decided to booby trap this thing with like a tear gas grenade or something, right? Have that thing on you and throw that thing on. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have. I would say, maybe go wear it for your initial entry, and then when you realize, okay, this place isn't going to go real crazy, I'll pull that off and I'll just pull the N95 back up over.
Incidentally, we did test that mask with that particular mask with tear gas, and it was very effective.
Did you pull the filter plug out before you tested it?
I did. yeah, I did. That's
Chris, tell us, what is that mask, just in case our viewers want to know.
That's a parcel safety. I'm trying to remember, NB 100 respirator.
All right, cool. So the parcel safety. So that one works for tear gas, guys. Yep. If you were curious, and
if you use it correctly and have a good seal, and your beard's not too
course.
big, and yada yada yada.
Exactly. You got to have that nice, gas mask shave, kind of like what I'm rocking right now.
Incidentally, you can go back and watch that video on the Survival Dispatch YouTube channel.
There you go, which you should be doing. And of course, you should be liking, commenting, and subscribing as well for more content like this, if this is stuff that you guys like. So obviously, we're going to want to have gloves. We kind of talked about that. Leather gloves are going to be what you want. There we go. We got some leather gloves right there. Chris is wearing them for us. Mike, you've mentioned before, anything synthetic is just going to melt. So like your mechanics wear gloves. They may look cool. They may be great for changing tires. But if we're like digging through stuff, you're going to want some all leather gloves.
Especially if you got a thermal breach going on.
Yeah, for sure. If you got run one of those breach pens, I don't think you want any synthetics anywhere nearby. For sure. So that's really important stuff there for sure. Now, what about, Denny pulled out some cordage, and we had a little bit of a discussion before this. I want to kind of talk about this. I had questions like, okay, yeah, sure. We're preppers. We love our paracord. We love our zip ties. But I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to be using that for when I scavenge? And, Mike, you had a good comment about that.
So, of course, again, as a bomb tech, I live my entire life either at the end of a rope or end of a wire or the end of a telelink. Okay. So one of rope is an absolute necessity in situations like this. One, say you fly your drone up and you realize, oh, wow, there's a roof on top of this apartment building that I can get in, but the front, the ground floor is all blockaded. All right, fine. Oh, but over here is where the fire escape is, but the fire escape ladder is up. Mm-hmm. Look left, look right. I can walk over there. I can throw an improvised grapnel up there off of my rope, pull it down. Yeah. Now I got a great easy method to get on up. Now, one thing that you should always remember, if you're going to be going in a fairly surreptitious manner in something like this, when you're going up, also bring that ladder back up with you, because you want to put things behind you back in the same manner that they were, just in case there's other people in the area. They don't want to have walked past, 100 times and seen that ladder up. When they walk by again, they see the ladder down. Now they're going to get curious. Okay.
Well, so it means they can't follow you too, at least not as easily.
Right. Exactly. So that's a great use for rope. Next thing, rope is wonderful for gaining leverage. So if I'm trying to say pry a window frame off or a window grate, something like that, I can go ahead and I can tie that thing off maybe to a porch stanchion or something like that, throw a trucker's hitch into there, and now I double it through there, and I'm using that as a pulley action to be able to increase my force on that. Or if you're alone and it's like one of those situations where it's like, oh crap, I need somebody to hold this, use your rope. Okay. So
Yep.
you pull it out a little ways, you get it there, and now I've got it in that point. I tie it off, and now I can go back to do what it is that I needed to do.
Really good stuff to have. Also pretty lightweight, a little bit of 550 cord. I don't think you're going to feel that too much in the pack when you're pulling it around. Another thing that we got to talk about when we're out in the field, things like that, is going to be comms, communications. Now, Chris, I know you had some examples for us of some potential options for communications while we're out in the field that could give you, just a little bit of intel about what's going on, because you can always just listen on your radio. You don't have to talk.
So I have a bunch of different radios. Generally speaking, $300 is the demarcation point. Under $300, it's all the same cheap Chinese junk. Over $300, you start to get into some better quality stuff, some Japanese units and whatnot. Like I said, I've got a bunch of them. This particular one also does some digital stuff. Of course, FM radio, NOAA. I love these flexible antennas, by the way. Easy to stuff in a bag, or whatever the case may be. But I keep these all Faraday bags stashed all over the place, and typically the batteries for ham radios last forever in a day. I put 2 charged ones in with every single one in a Faraday bag, and I can pull them out months later and they still have darn near full charge.
So another thing for that is you can also, it's a real good idea in a situation like this where you're competing with other people for such things. Put out a spotter. All right. You and your spotter working together, you go ahead, you put an earpiece in, your spotter has an earpiece in, and you can communicate quietly like that. And he's going to tell you if somebody comes nosing around while you're inside. Okay. A whole lot better than to be surprised by somebody else showing up where you're in the process of scavenging.
Good advice.
And you can buy cheap radios. I mean, you can buy a set of little Midlands for cheap with it and earpieces to communicate, within a fairly close distance. They're going to be open channels. Other people may be able to monitor you, but if money is a factor, you can buy cheaper and make it work. Just knowing you're not going to be as secure and not going to be able to communicate across much farther distances.
Well, a $30 Baofeng, a $100 Baofeng, it's all the same crap. You're not going to notice any significant difference in performance between those two. So if you want something better, you go over $300. Otherwise, the cheap stuff will work just fine for what it is.
Absolutely. So now I wanted to, kind of close things off. We talked about a lot of different things. Denny's got some sustenance there for, some water. Obviously, you don't want to be carrying that.
Hydration.
Maybe carry somewhere to carry hydration. You want something to eat, maybe, but you want it to be quick. So maybe something like a bar, something that you can eat without having to cook or fire up your jet boil or something like that. I mean, I love my nutrient survival, but it does take time to heat up that water. And if we're scavenging and we just need to get in and out as quick as possible, may not be the best application for it. Just having like a power bar or something like that would be a great thing to have. And then, Chris, you got yourself a little first aid kit there. That's going to be important.
Yeah, I make my own for smaller bags. So I just buy these containers and then I put what I want in them. So my get home bag has significantly more stuff in it than, say, like a scavenging kit would have. But this plus a tourniquet, I'm pretty much covered as far as I'm concerned for, short trips to go scavenge stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, you don't need a full blowout kit. We're not planning on getting into trouble. Obviously, that's the whole idea of this. We want to stay away from trouble as much as possible. But trouble may come our way. And if that's the case, I mean, for me personally, if I'm going to be carrying something, obviously we're going to have our fixed blade. We talked about that, your hatchet, but I think I'm going to be carrying something a little bit concealed if I need to, something maybe a little smaller that's easier to get around. Denny, what were your thoughts on that?
I just wanted to mention also, I have my little siphon kit, and if we had the opportunity to find fuel, we should be able to have a way to carry it back with us. So something to think about. That's
a good point too.
Milk jugs and 2-liter bottles will work, but fuel and corrosive liquids will eventually eat through it. But it might get that fuel or that liquid back to your home base and be able to store it appropriately. So that's what I want to mention.
So there's a caveat there, though, Chris, as you laid out at the beginning, this is 3 months after this
absolutely
event, right? So fuel is already starting to degrade significantly. So if you're storing jerry cans, for example, you should be rotating them in and out every 30 to 45 days. So even with fuel stabilizer on it, you're still going to run into problems. So I don't know that there's going to be a whole bunch of really good viable sources for fuel 3 months after a major event, besides something, like a farmer's tank, where it's a hand pump and it's sealed, it's not exposed to any, air, that sort of thing. Might last a little bit longer, but still, old fuel, no good.
But diesel's good. I mean, diesel, even in an unstabilized state, is good for about 18 months just by itself.
Diesel, but I'm talking like regular pump gas.
Right. But, I mean, yeah, but you can always, I mean, there is a filtration method for it. It's not great, but there is a method for rehabbing that kind of stuff. That and it also depends on the stabilizer you use. So like I use the PRI products for stabilizers, but it is also a rehab. So it'll clean all the polymerization out of the fuel. Now you'll have to filter it again, and your octane level is going to be way low. But maybe you just throw a little, you got a can of an octane booster, throw that into there. Well, there you go. It's enough to run a generator, right? Now, for fuel, I don't use the little hand pump sets. I tried them. They don't work for me well. They just make me crazy. I got one of the FloJo gas tappers.
I've heard about those.
And man, I am telling you what, I got one in every one of my job trucks. Every one. We don't even, and we keep 20 gallons of spare diesel in the back of each of those trucks. We don't even take
FloJo gas tapper, FUBAR. Okay, I'm getting my list.
Yeah.
Your notes, right?
So yeah, I can siphon out any car out there with one of those. Don't buy the one on Amazon though. Don't buy those ones. Buy them actually from FloJo.
Yeah, these little kits are slow.
Yeah.
They'll work, but they're slow. It takes a long time.
Yeah, it does. And the one that I actually got it with with a nice lithium ion power pack, just a rechargeable power pack. And yeah, I can pump 25 gallons of diesel on that thing. No sweat. It doesn't even make that thing friggin' turn sideways, but it has all the appropriate plugs and everything on it. And I can use it for other stuff as well. So that's a big boon there, but I'm with you guys on that. Yeah, just your fuel 3 months after is going to be getting sketchy, but diesel is going to be fine. Gasoline is going to be a problem, but if you have the ability to take the stuff that everybody else is walking away from and rehab it, it gives you something. Okay, definitely. So it's an option, but yeah, those FloJos, man, that is the way to go. That is a Cadillac of that stuff, and it pumps a lot of fuel fast. They also make one for water. It just comes in a little briefcase, little Pelican box.
Right on.
Cool. You got your power pack there, Chris?
Well, yeah, just because Mike mentioned it. So this one's solar powered. It's a 50,000 milliamp hour battery. So if we've kept this protected in a Faraday bag and, we've had an EMP, nuclear generated, whatever the case may be, we've got this to at least charge up by the sun, which is okay in our environment down here in the Southeast. Yep. Things like our ham radios charged up, whatever needs charged.
Keep your drone fired up too. Good way to make sure that thing's charged up. A couple things. I had a list here, and Mike was talking about getting in places quietly. And probably the quietest way to do this is a skill that's very perishable, but something you might want to consider is lock picking. And I know, Mike, this is something that you're very passionate about. But 3 months after the balloon goes up and we're in an SHTF environment, I think it's okay to break those lock picks out at that point.
So one thing that I have found is virtually everybody trains on lock picking on nice clean locks. Okay. That's a problem. So in the real world, when you start dealing with locks that have been out in the weather for a long time, like padlocks and stuff like that, man, I'm here to tell you, they don't crack nearly as easily because everything's all jammed up. So one thing I do suggest, bring along, especially if you're going to go in a door, one of the things that's really nice, bring along like a little can of penetrating oil. Right. So hit those hinges while you're in the process of working the lock. right?
It's not squeaking when you open the door.
Right, so it's not squeaking as much. So when you open the door, I know weird stuff that you pick up doing felony breaking and entering in other countries. But there's that. But there's also and this is one of the things that somebody threw at me, and I was just like, was for defeating a lock like on a chain link fence that's all corroded up.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that he showed me was you start by you take a little bit of grease, and if you apply a little bit of grease or whatever you happen to have around the hasp, you turn the lock upside down so that the bail is upside down. You apply it along there. You plug up any exterior holes other than where the key enters, and then you use a syringe or whatever method that you've got, and you fill the lock with water, right? And then, it's best to hold it with like a pair of pliers or something. And this is just electronic duster, but
blows out a lot of the junk.
Nope.
No,
it has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
So we do everything that we can at that point. We just apply a whole lot of cold to that water, and now we're going to use hydraulics, and you would be astounded at how many locks will just go boop when that water freezes, expands, and presses that lock hasp out.
I see a Survival Dispatch YouTube short coming soon.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it's a technique. It takes a little bit of work to get used to, but it happens. So another thing that a lot of people miss is breaking into a car. I mean, if you got to break into cars, you can't always make noise. And I don't know if you've ever hit the glass on a car, but man, it makes a ton of noise, right? I don't care if you put that duct tape pad on it; it's going to make a ton of noise because it's safety glass, right? Mm-hmm. So, one of the most wonderful tools that I was ever introduced to is an air shim. All right, these things are amazing, man. As a matter of fact, I just broke into a friend's car not very long ago, specifically because they were stupid.
Did you have his permission?
Well, he locked his keys in his car and then walked away from it, and I was just like, nice. You're just not very smart. But the big thing about that is, so you get a little bit of a pry. You get this between the door and the into the door frame, and now and what you're doing is you're inflating this little pillow. And there's a million great uses for one of these things. But what that'll do is it will, and then you deflate it whenever you want to. But there's a million different uses for one of these things. And honestly, I've actually used it for shimming up furniture for, things like that a whole lot more than anything else, because I refuse to sit there with a pry bar, putting in, quarters. But yeah, get that pulled out and then get your coat hanger in and boop, pop it, easy day, no problem. Or in this case, it actually turned out to be easier for me to shim it out, run the coat hanger in, grab the keys, and pull the keys out of the car.
Yeah.
So, look, you just in things like this, go slow. All right. You want to go fast. You want to do these things. And for everybody that says, I just kicked that door open, you've obviously never kicked doors open. I'm here to tell you that is going to screw up your knees, your hips. You're going to spend actually a lot of time on your ass laying on the ground going, what the hell happened? And take it from me as somebody who did let's just call it a dynamic mechanical breach. The point was we were on a street in a very bad city, and we needed off that street now. And at my peak, when I was in really good shape and I'm all kitted out, I got all my stuff on me, I'm like close to 340 pounds with all my gear. So I basically lineman tackled the door. All right. Okay, guess what? You can do it. I went straight through that door. The door went to pieces, and then everybody ran directly over the top of me.
Of course.
The point was I broke my shoulder in the process of it. So Yeah, and you're going to feel that for the rest of your days. So, yeah, there are consequences to trying to muscle your way through a door. Okay, don't do it.
This is good sound advice. You're not going to get anywhere else other than Survival Dispatch, guys. That's
right.
I mean, this you're not going to see that because everybody's be like, it's no big deal to kick down a door because they've never done it before. Yeah. But Mike has done a dynamic entry. I like that.
Dynamic mechanical entry.
Mechanical entry, my mistake.
Right.
So yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything, guys. Is there anything that you think that we left out that you want to add before we close this up?
We talked about having that notebook, and I just want to add one more thing. Because you may have multiple cache locations or multiple locations to get stuff, document where your stuff is so you remember where to go.
That's a good point.
And remember how to get out.
Yeah, your exfil locations or your routes, and if you need to store stuff, like what Denny was talking about, like maybe you found like some really good stuff, but you don't want to carry it all the way around. Maybe stash that somewhere, make a little note, and then we got a cache right there.
Yeah, check
Cache.
this thing out. This is from Dirty Man. They make 3 different sizes, and this is meant for being buried in the ground. It's made out of SDR pipe, sewer drainage run pipe.
Pretty thick.
There's not enough.
Skid 40.
You could detect it with a metal detector, but you can put valuables, whatever the case may be. It actually fits inside that sleeve, and there's a handle, so when you dig it up, you just pull it like that, and it pulls the whole thing out. That's a whole other story unto itself, but this is kind of a neat way to store valuables. The company claims about 100 years worth of protection out of the SDR pipe.
Pretty cool stuff. Definitely something to consider. To all our viewers, of course, thank you for the original commenter who brought this to our attention for the Gopher bag. Remember, guys, we're talking 3 months after the balloon goes up, okay? It's 3 months after the event. Society's collapsed. There is no rule of law. There are no police coming. So just keep that in mind. We're not suggesting you do any of these types of things now when the police are coming, because I will tell you right now, it will end you in jail. So just
none of us are advocating for breaking and entering in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Nope. Absolutely. So just kind of get that out of the way.
Situation.
Absolutely. We're just brainstorming here, guys. This is just our ideas. But what ideas do you have? Let us know down in the comments section. And while you're there, do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us fight suppression here on YouTube. And make sure you click the bell notification so you get notified when we upload new content here on Survival Dispatch.
And let us know if you have any tools that you recommend that we didn't mention or maybe we didn't think about.
Exactly. What have you guys thought about for scavenging that we haven't? Let us know in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one.